So, talk to me a little bit about where this idea first comes from. You know it's WrestleMania, so you know Hulk Hogan's figured in big, but you revealed it before what the original idea was, and I don't think that we've really expounded on that here on your show. Kind of lay that out for everybody.
Well, the original idea was...
Let's set the backstory. It's summer 1990. Earthquake attacks Hulk Hogan, gives Hogan some time off TV. He's going to go film Suburban Commando, I think. Is that right?
I think that was the one, yeah.
So he films Suburban Commando, which actually comes out a couple months after WrestleMania 7, so that timeline lines up. And he does the chest finish, the sit-down gimmick on Hogan, and then Hogan's out, and he's off TV, and there's a new character, Tugboat, is introduced, and he is Hogan's pal, and he's going to try to come to the rescue and help him, and they're doing these bracelets, and you can get one of these bracelets if you'll just write in and blah, 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 and you're supporting your Hulkster, and they're showing all these letters that are coming in. You guys are doing an address capture campaign, which is pretty amazing. People do it with email and text message numbers now, but back then snail mail was the deal. And
got to build that mailing list.
And so it builds to SummerSlam 1990, which is Earthquake versus Hulk Hogan in Philadelphia. And the seeds are starting to be planted. What was the original plan for WrestleMania 7?
The original plan was we had Sarge coming back, and we had Adnan Al-KC, and there was turmoil in the Middle East with Iraq and what have you, and Iraq being invaded, and, Kuwait being invaded by Iraq. And the idea was that Hulk Hogan's good new best friend, Tugboat, would turn his back on America and the Hulkster and adopt the ways of the Middle East and be chic Tugboat against the All-American, the real American, Hulk Hogan.
How would Slaughter have been figured into that?
Well, Sarge was going to kind of be, peripheral character at the time. There was the idea to do chic Tugboat was before Sarge came in. Sarge came back right before SummerSlam, I believe. We did the Great American Sergeant Slaughter Award. So this idea was even before that. So we'd taken Hogan out after WrestleMania sometime, and then Hogan was coming back at SummerSlam. But in the meantime, the idea was that it would be Tugboat that would be the one to lead that charge, and Tugboat be his friend, and that Tugboat would be the one that would eventually turn. Along the way, Sarge comes back.
Fresh off his G.I. Joe deal.
Yep. And Sarge comes back, and it's like, well, what if the real American hero, G.I. Joe, Sergeant Slaughter, turned his back on America and the real American Hulk Hogan? So thank God for Sergeant Slaughter coming back when he did and stepping into that role. But the build-up was one of Sarge being an Iraqi sympathizer, and
wait, hang on. Why would Vince have picked Tugboat?
Because he was a big, huge guy and humongous arms and big pythons, if you will, and they just saw
a monster.
A monster, yeah, and it was a big monster for Hogan to destroy when it came time. Big guy to beat. So like to create monsters for the Hulkster.
So an audible is called at this point, and for whatever reason.
Well, thank God we hadn't got into the turn.
But y'all had already started to do some teases.
Well,
right?
we had done the teases with Tugboat being the one to bring Hulk back and everything. Man, Tugboat and Hogan teamed at Survivor Series. We were kind of already, that ship had sailed, so to speak. But Sarge coming in when he did, and being that Iraqi sympathizer, it was just topical. It was what had been done in the business for eons. You know, you take the foreign menace. You know, we were at war with Germany, and after the war in Germany, the heels were all Germans. And after the war in Japan, all the heels were Japanese and threw salt. Well, we hadn't gone to war yet, but you had a hell of a heel over in Iraq by the name of Saddam Hussein that everybody hated and was on the news every week. So why not have an Iraqi sympathizer? And what's worse than having an Iraqi in General Adnan, but to have an American, a G.I. Joe that represented everything that was right in America, an American hero, and Sergeant Slaughter, turn his back on his own country. And that was the thought process. And to go to Mania, the real American versus the American turncoat. And this was obviously before things escalated in the Middle East.
Well, but you were still kind of building this pay-per-view around a real-life conflict.
Always did. They always built things around real-life conflicts. World War II was a real-life conflict.
Well, hang on. You said they right there. This is you.
This isn't me personally.
Oh, you personally were there.
Yeah, I was personally there, and yeah, I was behind it. And I definitely did support it. And it's what they had done. The Hollywood, wrestling, historically, took foreigners and made them heels and bad guys. And you propped up your American heroes. And that's exactly what we were doing.
What was
and before that, before we even necessarily, before we even had conflict in Iraq, we had booked, because the Los Angeles Coliseum had approached us about coming in and holding the event in the Los Angeles Coliseum, which held over 100,000 people. And we went out there, we flew out there, they had a huge presentation, they set a ring up on the 50-yard line, and they had the big screens up. They had put seats on the field around it and had
they did a big
cameras
sell.
out. Oh, they had a huge sell. I mean, they had, WrestleMania 7 up on the scoreboard, and they had video. So that when we walked in, we were up on the big screen and stuff. They had this beautiful luncheon for us. And that was, God, I want to say it was right after or right before. Well, it was right before WrestleMania 6. And because we had done 6 in Toronto, and this was going to be bigger than 6.
Right.
So we had been out there and done the tour, made the decision, okay, we'll do this. And then as time went on, it was like, well, take Hulk's best friend, Tugboat, and, do the turn and triumphant return of the Hulkster.
Was WrestleMania 6 a disappointment? Do you think some of the decline starts with WrestleMania 6 based on it being babyface, and it not having...
I don't think the event was a disappointment at all.
You don't think... I mean, I'm just asking, were buys down for that? It was reported that buys were down for that.
Well, buys were down from WrestleMania 5, yeah. But I don't think it was a disappointment.
So it was less about Warrior Hogan and more about how bad it was, and more about how great WrestleMania 5 was with Macho and Hogan.
Maybe,
and how masterful the build was.
I just think that the babyface attraction
didn't work as well.
Maybe didn't work. Well, obviously it didn't work as well as the other one. But that's hindsight.
So then you come back and you're planning to do Tugboat, and along the way...
Yeah, and along the way, Sarge comes available. Tensions heat up. You got...
Does Sarge call y'all, or do you call Sarge? Do you call?
Sarge called us.
And he's fresh off the G.I. Joe thing. That was a big deal.
Yep, and Sarge was looking, and he and Vince had a falling out before, but Sarge called, and I
Do you remember what that falling out was about?
It was about the G.I. Joe contract, I believe.
He didn't want him to do it?
Vince didn't want him to do it, no, and Vince wanted to have a piece of it. And Sarge, went off and did his own thing.
I see.
So Sarge was arguably as big, if not bigger, than Hogan at that time.
Absolutely.
So, it was disagreement. Shit happens all the time. But it was opportunity for him to come back. He came back. He was red hot. I mean, he was red hot.
Did he want to be a heel, or did you?
He loved the idea.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Whose idea was it to? Do you remember it like sitting around the pool and
a lot of that was that part of it was a lot Pat and Vince at that time, and I was doing TV, so I was in after the fact, and
You told me something about
television.
And one of the most iconic things here is I guess you guys soaked a Hulkamania T-shirt in lighter fluid and then had Sarge.
Well, that was down the way.
Light it.
That was closer to the match itself.
Was there discussion about anything else there?
Yeah, there sure was. But I mean, you gotta, before we get to that, and I know where you want to go with that, but getting to that point, we had Sarge and we had Adnan, and this surge from underneath and the animosity towards Sergeant Slaughter and Adnan was growing. And
let's talk about Adnan for a minute. We've just kind of glossed over him. Tell everybody who Adnan really is. I don't think a lot of people, I mean, he just kind of appears out of nowhere, and he's in WWF programming, but he has an interesting backstory.
Yeah, he's Adnan al-KC. That's his real name. And he's from Iraq. He grew up with Saddam Hussein.
Wow.
And they were childhood, neighbors, friends, what have you, went to school together. And so he was a legit Iraqi, legit knew Saddam Hussein. And, it wrote itself.
Right.
In a lot of respects. And in our lifetime, we had never, I didn't, you didn't, we'd never experienced war. We experienced the Vietnam War, but we had not declared war on Vietnam.
I didn't. I'm not as old as you. Shut up.
Okay, I'm sorry. I forgot. Okay, I did. But we had never declared war on a country.
Right.
At that point, for me in my lifetime. I read about it. I was alive during the Vietnam War. So the thought of going to war was unprecedented. We never dreamed in a million years we'd actually go to war. Thought, well, there's a skirmish. There's a dispute. This guy's an asshole over here in Iraq. Well, let's have an Iraqi sympathizer. It's a heel. It's what we've done for years.
Well,
and we went with it, and it was getting over. People were booing the shit out of him, and it was building. And we had a red hot, honest to God, red hot, white hot heel in Sergeant Slaughter and Adnan. So you got a white hot heel, you got a white hot babyface in Hogan. The two shall collide. What happens if along the way that red hot heel takes the most coveted prize, being the WWF Championship?
So you don't think that this was in poor taste?
It wasn't in poor taste when it started. No, it wasn't. Not at all.
Even though not here in, go ahead. Even though not here in America, but over there, people were losing their lives. It wasn't in poor taste.
What do you mean people were losing their lives? People in Iraq and Kuwait, when Iraq was invading Kuwait?
Right.
Well, they hadn't really done that all yet. It was a skirmish. There was
skirmishes don't involve death.
So what you're saying is it's in poor taste to ever portray something that is controversial.
Well, hey, let's run through it. Do you see people rioting on WWE TV now?
I'm saying at the time.
I'm saying at the time now.
I'm saying at the time. No, we're not talking about now. We're talking about at the time. And at the time, if people were rioting and doing like they are now, yeah, they probably would have exploited that.
And would it have been right to do so?
I don't know if it would have been. It was what it was.
I'm asking.
It's entertainment. In the name of entertainment, you take what is hot. You take what is in the culture at the time, and you exploit it. Is it right for Hollywood to do movies about it? Is that right? We're no different than Hollywood. It was make-believe. Sergeant Slaughter wasn't a real Iraqi sympathizer. So is it in poor taste for Hollywood to go out and do a movie about a real-life sniper who was killing people in the Gulf War? Is that right?
Well, that's a documentary.
No, it wasn't a documentary. It was an entertainment movie starring, what the hell's his name from The Hangover? It was an entertainment movie. That's all it was. Yeah. It was for entertainment purposes. This was for entertainment purposes. So if what you're saying that's in poor taste, then Hollywood's in poor taste. Television is in poor taste. Entertainment is in poor taste. We were simply mirroring society and what was going on at the time and exploiting that no different than what other people did.
Was American Sniper aimed at children, and did they sell dolls?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's aimed towards people. And yes, it's entertainment. And if it's in poor taste to do entertainment based on real life things, then it was in poor taste. But when you're in the moment and you do what you've always done, and you can look back 20 years ago, go, well, that was really in poor taste because people were getting killed. People are getting killed every day.
Here's what I don't understand. Why are you defending this so hard when Bob Costas?
Because I don't care about Bob Costas. I'm defending it hard.
USO.
Roseanne Barr is a standard bearer now for good taste?
No, I'm just saying people are backing out here, and America was turned off a little bit. Because
but you're talking about things, and again, we're not even there yet. You're talking about things that took place after the United States of America declared war on Iraq.
Yeah, you guys still had the fucking pay-per-view.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
They still had a Super Bowl.
They didn't have fake Iraqis in the Super Bowl.
Where the fuck are you going with this?
Well, I'm going with I don't understand why nobody.
So we should have canceled the event.
Let me ask you this.
Well, hang on. I'm asking you a question. Should we have canceled the event?
You shouldn't have went with.
Should we have canceled the event?
Should have canceled that match.
Okay, so we should just scrap everything we did and cancel the match.
Yeah, it was in poor taste.
Okay, so every time that something in poor taste happened, we should have just canceled everything.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad we had this talk.
Okay.
Do you remember any of the office speaking up or taking issue with this angle, or was everybody as fucking brainwashed and drinking the Kool-Aid as you were?
Well, I'm not brainwashed and drinking the Kool-Aid. You weren't there. People weren't there making decisions, and you're making decisions, and yeah, it affects a lot of people's lives and their livelihoods. And yes, lives were. But again, when you're talking in August, before war breaks out, and you're looking at things and you're going, well, this is how we've always done it, and this is what's hot, and it's no different than what everybody else does, what Archie Bunker did on All in the Family, a comedy show. That
they didn't sell tickets to Archie Bunker.
They sold advertising to Archie Bunker.
Yeah, I understand. This is a different time. You're talking. Archie Bunker wasn't on the air in '91.
Of course, it's a different time than where we are now.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is that you simply had a situation where you're going into it, and the whole situation changes. Everything changes.
But WWF doesn't. They stay the course.
No, we changed a lot.
What'd you change?
We didn't burn a flag that was suggested by Jesse Ventura that we do because it became legal.
This is around the same time Jesse Ventura becomes mayor, by the way. And his suggestion, yeah, he was made mayor earlier in this same year, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota.
Jesse had left by then when he became mayor, didn't he?
Yeah, he's not here then.
Yeah, but he was the one that suggested when the American flag became legal to burn the American flag, that we burn an American flag, and because it was legal.
And you decided,
and out of good taste, we didn't.